Concerns over the health of Nigeria's democracy are mounting as opposition leaders raise alarm about perceived threats to multi-party governance. Questions around political inclusivity, respect for constitutional limits, and the independence of democratic institutions have triggered discussions on how to safeguard democratic principles and promote active citizen participation. Understanding these challenges is crucial for preserving the country's democratic framework and ensuring governance remains accountable and transparent. Joining us now is public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. He will examine the threats to Nigeria's multi-party democracy, explore strategies for promoting democratic tenets, and assess what steps political leaders and citizens can take to strengthen democratic institutions across the country. Good afternoon. Many thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Good afternoon. Compliments of the Yuletide.
Wish you the same. Thank you so much. Now, what do you make of these allegations, these alarms that are being sounded by members of the opposition, whether it's about the school of thought that suggests that we're inching towards a one-party state and the likes? Is there cause for concern from your perspective?
Yes, there is, but it's not peculiar to the current situation. We've treaded this road before. I recall under the PDP leadership between 1999 and 2015, the lingo then was PDP and others. Even at the peak when we had 91 political parties, it was PDP and others, and at that time we actually did have a one-party state, a de facto one-party state. So it's a repetition of what we had under the People's Democratic Party that is playing out again, because as is often said, politicians copy from the same playbook or textbook. So we are already in a de facto one-party state, by my own estimation. I did mention this in my column in the Punch newspaper quite some 4 months ago when I saw the exodus into APC. And then from that time till now, the situation has moved from bad to worse, so much so that the ranks of opposition elected representatives have been depleted. It's unprecedented that in 1 year you have as many as 6 governors defecting from the party that brought them into power into the governing party at the center. 6 governors and still counting. We don't know whether Plateau governor will make the move before the end of the year, but insinuations are that he may also be joining his brother governor from Taraba, who just over the weekend formally declared for APC. And that is at the level of the executive. If you look at the National Assembly, the two-thirds majority that APC does not have in 2023, it now have more than two-thirds majority, both at the Senate and House of Reps. And same goes for the state houses of assembly. So what are we talking about? There are no further indices of a one-party state than what is playing out. Yes, we are a de jure multi-party democracy, but a de facto one-party state, at least as of today. That's my own estimation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ojo. And you talked about how this is something that has happened before, but I'm wondering if you can just make it clear why it's especially troubling this time around. And then if you can also answer what impact you think this has on regular people. I think a lot of times we'll talk about voter apathy, but when regular Nigerians hear that we might be moving to a one-party state, alarm bells may not necessarily go off. So how do you think that urgency can sort of be communicated to the broader public?
So what makes it more troubling at this point in time is that we ought to mature in our democracy. If it happened some 10 years ago from 1999 to 2015 under the PDP 16-year rule, we should not have a repeat in the last 10 years that APC has taken over. Don't forget that APC campaigned under the mantra of change. And then the current administration of President Bola Tinubu talked about renewed hope agenda. So is this the kind of renewed hope we are having? Of course, I heard Mr. President when he talked about lampooning the opposition that they are internally displaced politicians and that he cannot stop those who want to join the ruling party from coming, because he then will be accused of anti-democratic tenets if he said don't come. But the maneuver, the underhand dealings from the mindset of the opposition is that these people who are jumping into the ruling party were coerced, or, as Senator Yina Abaribe said on one of the media channels yesterday night, that they were promised automatic ticket. So there is a kind of inducement for them to come. Even though I do not subscribe to the fact that AFCC is necessarily corralling all the people who have joined the ruling party. I think it's just given the fact that politics is a game of interest. These people who have compromised, who have soiled their hands, are seeking protection under the ruling party. But it has not always been so. Even when you come to the ruling party, at least to the best of my knowledge, Chris Ngige has not defected from APC. He's still an APC person. Uche, the Minister of Innovation, who was removed or who resigned from the as Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, has not defected, and it was still, while it was even the better Edu that had to drop out. So the argument that EFCC is being used to harass them, I think that is an hyperbolic statement. But come to think about it, it's troubling for ordinary citizens because then there is no political accountability. There are no political choices, particularly as it regards to the presidential election in 2027. Because where there is no plurality and the choice is limited, it's like Hobson's choice. It's either APC or no other, given the fact that the others are more or less weakened, factionalized, and are no longer credible platforms to contest elections. Look at what just happened in Osun State, where two factions of Accord Party have produced candidates. We don't know whether it's the court that will eventually resolve that issue for them. Even the PDP, you have two factions, and that's why it's very easy for those lawmakers who are defecting to cite Section 68 subsection 1G of the Constitution, which says that you can only defect when there is a faction or crisis within your party. So when there are crises in the opposition, it worries an ordinary citizen because, as you insinuated in this question, there will be voter apathy. People will say, oh, even though we do not enjoy life under the APC, but which one is a better choice among all the rest? So it's left the people with lack of political accountability, and it strengthens the government of the day to act with impunity.
Of course. Mr. Ojo, you've done an excellent job in breaking down the situation. At the start, you mentioned that this is not the first time we've seen a de facto one-party state, mentioning what happened with PDP in the past. But of course, at this time, things are more, there's cause for concern because we're supposed to be progressing in our democracy. When you pair all that you've mentioned when you're responding to my question and Aniese's, and you also factor in what was concluded yesterday regarding the emergency rule, when the Supreme Court went ahead to back President Tinubu and held that the president could declare emergency rule in any state and suspend duly elected officials. We remember that people, politicians usually ask those that are aggrieved to seek redress in court. They usually say go to court. And if we're hearing this from the Supreme Court, is it fair to say that maybe there's really no other option when it comes to moving towards practicing true democracy?
Yeah, Cynthia, sincerely speaking, that was more troubling for me. When I heard it on the news that 6-1, that the Supreme Court justices not just said the president has the power to declare state of emergency. That is a given. given Section 305 of the Constitution, yes, the president can declare state of emergency, but that he could go ahead and suspend elected representative of the people amazes me. I'm one of those who took up President Bola Tinubu when he declared state of emergency in Rivers in March 18, 2025. I wrote in my column in the Punch newspaper that, Mr. President, you goofed. And because I am of the opinion that the same Supreme Court has said that Fubara was running a government of handicap, that a section, an arm of government had been handicapped or has not been carried along in the governance of the system, which was why the Supreme Court ruled him out of order by the fact that he was running the State House of Assembly of 4 against 27. And that, I felt, arising from that judgment during the year, the Supreme Court will have ruled the president out of order to suspend, even for a limited time, an elected representative of the people. Because in my own layman opinion, that should have, the power to suspend or impeach a governor should have rested and is still resting with the State House of Assembly. The Constitution is very clear that the State House of Assembly can query the governor, can impeach the governor. But a situation where a principal or headmaster or a VC in the name of a president can wake up one morning and even without exhausting all the conflict resolution mechanism will slam a state of emergency on a state and go ahead to suspend elected representative of the people. I don't think the Supreme Court has done well in my own estimation. So, because this is a power that could be subject to abuse by the president, and not necessarily this president, as we have seen with the case of Rivers, but for future presidents whose hand may have been strengthened by this Supreme Court decision, to say the Supreme Court has said I can suspend you. So under one rules or the other, under one guile or the other, under one machinations or the other, you can just say, oh, I don't like your face, and say, oh, you are not governing where you're still, so you are going on 3 months suspension, you are going on 6 months suspension. And then their lordship in the Supreme Court will say the president has acted well. I think that is a danger to our democracy. In my own opinion, I mean, I may be in the minority, I may not be as learned as those who made that decision yesterday, but I think it opens a carte blanche for the executive who wants to be ruthless and autocratic to misuse such a power. Because what then becomes of State House of Assembly if the big man in Abuja can just wake up and suspend a governor when that constitutional responsibility has been domiciled in the State House of Assembly.
Public Affairs Analyst Jide Ojo, thank you very much for joining us on this very important topic.